Good morning, fifth grade. Today we're going to continue reading in our text, Esperanza Rising, and we'll be continuing with chapter 10. Before we get started, we have a quick write. It says, have you ever been paid for doing a job? What job did you do? Why did you do it? And how did you feel after you got paid? Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the focus question. Our focus question today is, how is Esperanza changing? And we want to be able to compare Esperanza's change over the course of the novel in 2 paragraphs. Our vocabulary words today are charity, and that is when you give someone help. So this person is asking for help, or they're asking for charity, and they have money in their hand, so someone has given them charity. The second word is cavernous. Something is cavernous, it's vast, and it's kind of looks like an empty space. And this alley is cavernous. And then the last one is frigid, and that means very cold. We're going to continue reading on page 167, and we're going to use our CSPS strategy. And so just to review, Esperanza's mom got really sick, and Esperanza is really worried about her, and she knows that she has to help her mom, and so she is going to try to get a job cutting potato eyes. And the last thing she asked Miguel in the section is, what are potato eyes? Which is another way of showing how naive she is. But we're going to keep reading using our CSPS strategy. And this is Esperanza's first day of work in the sheds. She is going to take Mama's place since Mama is sick. Esperanza huddled with Josefina, Hortensia, and a small group of women, waiting for the morning truck to take them to the sheds. A thick tule ground fog that hugged the earth settled in the valley surrounding them as if they stood within a deep gray cloud. There was no wind, only silence and penetrating cold. Esperanza bundled in all the clothing that she could put on: old wool pants, a sweater, a ragged jacket, a wool cap, and thick gloves over thin gloves, all borrowed from friends in the camp. Hortensia had shown her how to heat a brick in the oven and bundle it in newspaper, and she hugged it to her body to keep warm as they rode in the truck. We'll stop right there because we have information about our character and our setting. For box 1, we would say, Esperanza started her first day of work. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the quote. And we would write down this quote on page 167 that says, Esperanza bundled in all the clothing she could put on: old wool pants, a sweater, a ragged jacket, a wool cap, and thick gloves over thin gloves, all borrowed from friends at the camp. Press pause to write down your quote and play when you're ready for the setting. Alright, and in the first paragraph, we know that Esperanza is huddled with a group of women, and they're waiting on the truck to take them to the sheds. And so in box 2, you would write, Esperanza and a group of women are waiting on a cold winter morning for the truck to pick them up and take them to the sheds. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the quote. You can write down this first sentence that says, Esperanza huddled with Josefina, Hortensia, and a small group of women waiting for the morning truck to take them to the sheds. And you can also write an S out beside that one and a C out beside that first one. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready to keep reading. We're going to keep reading at the bottom of page 67. Since the driver could only see a few yards ahead, the truck rumbled slowly on the dirt roads. They passed miles of naked grapevines, stripped of their harvest and bereft of their leaves. Fading into the mist, the brown and twisted trunks looked frigid and lonely. The truck stopped at the big packing shed. It was really one long building with different open-air sections as long as 6 train cars. The railroad tracks ran along one side. The docks for trucks ran along the other. Esperanza had heard Mama and the others talk about the sheds, how they were busy with people, women standing at long tables, packing fruit, trucks coming and going with loads of fresh from the fields, and workers stocking the train cars that would later be hooked to a locomotive to take the fruit all over the United States. But cutting potato eyes was different. Since nothing was being packed, it wasn't the usual activity. Only 20 or so women gathered in the cavernous shed, sitting in a circle on upturned crates, protected from the wind by only a few stacks of empty boxes. The Mexican supervisor took their names. With all the clothing they were wearing, he barely looked at their faces. Josefina told Esperanza that if she was a good worker, the bosses would not concern themselves with her age, so she knew she would have to work hard. Esperanza copied everything that Hortensia and Josefina did. When the women put the hot brick between their feet to keep warm while they worked, so did she. When they took off their outer gloves and worked in the thin cotton ones, she did the same. Everyone had a metal bin sitting behind them. The field workers brought cold potatoes and filled up their bins. Hortensia took a potato and then, with a sharp knife, she cut it into chunks around the dimples. She tapped her knife on one of the dimples. "This is an eye," she whispered to Esperanza. "Leave 2 eyes in every piece, so there will be 2 chances for it to take root." Then she dropped the chunks into the burlap sack. When the sack was full, the field workers took it away. "Where do they take them?" she asked Hortensia. "To the fields. They plant the eye pieces and then the potatoes grow." Esperanza picked up a knife. Now she knew where potatoes came from. The women began chatting. Some knew each other from camp, and one of them was Marta's aunt. "Is there any more talk of striking?" asked Josefina. "Things are quiet now, but they are still organizing," said Marta's aunt. "There is talk of striking in the spring when it's time to pick. We are afraid there will be problems. If they refuse to work, they will lose their cabins in the migrant camps. And then where will they live? Or worse, they will be sent back to Mexico." "How can they send them all back?" asked Hortensia. "Repatriation," said Marta's aunt, "La Migra. The immigration authorities round up people who cause problems and check their papers. If they are not in order, if they do not happen to have their papers with them, the immigration officials send them back to Mexico. We have heard that they have sent people whose families have lived here for generations, those who are citizens and have never even been to Mexico." Esperanza remembered the train at the border and the people being herded onto it. She had been thankful for the papers that Abuelita's sisters had arranged. Marta's aunt said, "There is also some talk of harming Mexicans who continue to work." The other women sat around in a circle, pretending to concentrate on their potatoes, but Esperanza noticed worried glances and raised eyebrows. Then Hortensia cleared her throat and said, "Are you saying that if we continue to work during the spring, your niece and her friends might harm us?" "We are praying that does not happen. My husband says we will not join them. We have many mouths to feed." We'll stop right there because we have evidence of the problem. Marta's aunt has told them that in the spring, the strikers might harm the Mexicans who continue to work. In box 3, we would write, Marta's aunt tells the group of women that people are planning on striking in the spring. and they might hurt Mexicans that continue to work. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the quote. You'll write down this quote in the middle of page 171. Marta's aunt said there is also some talk about harming Mexicans who continue to work. Press pause to write down the quote and play when you're ready to keep reading. Let's keep reading at the bottom of page 171. And he has told Marta that she cannot stay with us. We cannot risk being asked to leave the camp or losing our jobs because of our niece. Heads nodded in sympathy, and the circle was silent, except for the sounds of the knives cutting the crisp potatoes. "Is anyone going to Mexico for La Navidad?" asked another woman, wisely changing the subject. Esperanza kept cutting the potato eyes, but listened carefully, hoping someone would be going to Aguascalientes for Christmas. But no one seemed to be traveling anywhere near there. A worker refilled Esperanza's metal bin with another load of cold potatoes. The rumbling noise brought her thoughts back to what Marta's aunt had said. If it was true that the strikers would threaten people who kept working, they might try to stop her too. Esperanza thought of Mama in the hospital and Abuelita in Mexico, and how much depended on her being able to work. If she was lucky enough to have a job in the spring, no one was going to get in her way. And that last part right there is our solution. Esperanza decides that she's not going to be a part of the strike because she needs to work so that she can pay Mama's hospital bills and get Abuelita to the United States. In box 4, you would write, Esperanza decided that she would not let anyone stop her from working because she needs the money to take care of Mama and Abuelita. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the quote. And for the quote, you will write down this last sentence on page 172. If she was lucky enough to have a job in the spring, no one was going to get in her way. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the paragraph. It says, how does Esperanza respond to challenge? What does her fast reveal about her as a person?